Welcome back, intrepid Kerbinauts. We are returned. We have returned to continue. Wow, can't even think here. We have returned to continue building our Polar Goose orbital space station. We have an orbital science space station in a polar orbit. That's a lot of orbits. And a polar orbit around Kerbin. It's the first space station I have built on this save file. I couldn't believe that I hadn't built a space station yet. And we wanted to do it in multiple launches, and each launch needed to be uniquely different. Now, I say that, but what you're seeing here is me just building another conventional rocket. That's because this centrifuge science unit that I wanted on top of the space station, or on one edge of the space station, was just so bulky, and I tried putting it in a space shuttle because I really wanted to do a space shuttle style launch, which we will get to in this video. I just couldn't make it work with the Mark III hangar, the Mark III cargo bay, so I just said, you know what, screw it, it's not that important. I just want to be done with it. I want to be done with building the space station so I can move on to the rest of the fun parts of the mission. So here we are, just building a big fairing and a big old rocket to take this centrifuge science thing up to our orbital space station, up to the Polar Goose. And yeah, not much more to comment about this. I did have the hardest time getting the centrifuge to actually work. I think I have forgotten how to get the little fairing pieces to clip through a solid piece. I think you have to like move your the like bar. If you're gonna put bars that are connecting your centrifuge pieces, you have to, like, you know, use the move tool, move it out of the fairing, build the fairing, and then move it back into the fairing. You have to kind of trick, oops, just hit the mic there, oopsies. You have to trick it into, but you know what, I just could not be bothered to figure that out. So I think I ended up just Control-Zing until it was fixed, and then that ended up creating an issue. And so basically the moral of the story is one of those centrifuge rings will not spin, ends up not spinning, and then now the whole thing doesn't work. But I'm spoiling the future. Yeah, what are we doing here? We are building the bottom part of the rocket that is going to boost this big old centrifuge science unit up to the Polar Goose. And why are we taking this? Why do we even need this centrifuge unit up there? It's because we have samples taken from E.L.U. Valentina, Bill, Bob, Jebediah. They are trying to answer the question, why is Duna red? And we have samples of ice taken from E.L.U. that just might give us the answers we need. And a little bit of science needs to be done on those samples, and then we need to take those samples to, you know, the capabilities we have at the base, the Kerbal Space Center itself. Well, it's not enough. And we have recently discovered that there are secret science facilities on Kerbin, unbeknownst to us when we started the save file, that we can discover and we can go find. And so that is the point of this whole space station. We're putting a polar space station in orbit around Kerbin for two purposes. One, to science the samples we got from E.L.U., but two, to scan the planet and see if we can discover the coordinates of these secret science facilities. But before we can do that, we have to finish building the space station. So here we are, building the space station. This is launch number 3 of 4 that is going to continue building the Polar Goose, and we are away. There's nothing too interesting really about this rocket or this flight. Honestly, I could have just like edited it to where I was like, hey, I built this thing and now it's on the space station. But you know what, this is a playthrough and a let's play or whatever, and so I wanted to show the whole launch and the whole kind of effort and experience of the multiple launch style building of a space station. So here we are. That big old fairing is kind of unrealistic up there at the top, but you know what, we did the best we could with those big bulky rings that created the centrifuge. But we are already through our second stage. If you're following along at home, yeah, you want to point up and away, and as soon as you can, depending on how bulky your rocket is and how much thrust to weight you have, start turning over to 45 degrees, and once you get to about 45 degrees, just hang out there until you get high enough in the atmosphere to where atmospheric resistance is no longer an issue, and then you can go ahead and turn over to just follow your prograde vector and chase that prograde vector all the way along your orbit line until you get the apoapse as high as you want it. In this case, 204 kilometers. I think I'm going to try and zoom in on my little editor here because I can't see. 204 kilometers is the orbital size, I guess, the orbital radius of our target orbit. And we went, I think, up a little bit past that, if I remember. And then we'll get up there, we'll circularize. So you go up to your apoapse, you point along your prograde vector, and you circularize, and then you rendezvous. Not really too this is kind of the most boring launch, I think, of the 4 launches. It's just very meh. There's not much going on, but I wanted to show it. I think I did a much better job of rendezvousing with this specific launch, though. Once we got up to our apoapse, something that will help with rendezvous is if you can match at least 1 point of your, even if you're not, close to your target, if you can put 1 point of your current orbital line on the orbital line of your target, well then, once you line it up, and see I'm making an inclination change here. Once you line it up, if you just change your orbit one way or another, make it bigger, make it smaller by a small amount, but at least 1 point of your orbit intersects with your target line's orbit here. Like you can see, I have this maneuver node right at the intersection point, and then my current orbit is slightly bigger. Then if you make a maneuver node and you right click or left click, whatever, get that little 3-point menu and skip orbits, you can see how your orbit relative to your target orbit is changing based on those close approach indicators. So basically what you saw me do is just keep clicking skip orbit, skip orbit, skip orbit, skip orbit until the close approaches kept getting closer and closer and closer. And that is a pretty, I think I'd have to go do my research, but I think that's a pretty really, obviously, like in real launches, NASA, and they are, much better. They'll do it within 1 orbit, but it's a pretty easy and relatively realistic way to just patiently, if you're trying to save fuel. In this case, I didn't have a ton of delta V left, so I couldn't just brute force. I couldn't just like push my orbit up and then push it back down and force an encounter. I had to kind of be patient with this encounter because our fuel reserves weren't that big. So I intersected our orbit lines. I changed my orbit slightly relative to I made it slightly bigger, and then just waited until we caught up to each other. We were basically on opposite sides of the planet. There's a little visual glitch that happens with, I don't know which mod is creating that. I don't know if it's the restock or if it's the space station parts or Eve or something, but I've noticed on sunrises, as you kind of come around the planet and the sun rises, the rendering of the visual parts turns to this either fully black or fully white, and it takes a few seconds for like the parts to render. My guess is restock, some sort of incompatibility with restock and one of the visual mods I have, or maybe I just didn't load them correctly or something. Although I use CCAN, so it should be loading properly. Anyway, doesn't matter. We have a rendezvous. Look at that. I think it took much. I think that was at 12 or 10 times speed. It took much longer than what you saw here on screen, but really it's not that important. We don't even have a crew. We don't even have fun shenanigans to do with crew. It's literally just a big dumb piece of machinery being added to the space station. But I am quite liking how this space station is turning out. A mistake I made, I didn't put RCS thrusters in an orientation that would allow me to move this thing down. It could either go right, left, forward, back, or up, but could not go down. So I kept having to flip it over and push it back down, and then push it up and flip it over and push it back down. But eventually we did get it docked with the space station, and I think it's pretty fun. It's kind of like got this big kind of core section, and the centrifuge is off on its own little area. So narratively, that center section with the cupola module and the 2 cockpits and the science bay, I consider that the kind of common area where, you know, general day-to-day activities would happen, and then as they go up to study each sample, they'll go up into that hitchhiker cabin, and that's where like one of the science labs is, and you would send your samples, you know, through a mechanical arm into the centrifuges. The mechanical arm would then place your samples on the edge of those centrifuges, and then science would be done. And then you would get your samples back, and you would get the information about where you needed to go on Kerbin. And here we're using, so yeah, this is important. Jebediah and Valentina, they're back at mission control, and they're just running initial tests on this new module, making sure all of the parts are working according to expectations. And so they're running an orbital scan of Kerbin for the very first time in the 42-year Kerbal Space Program history. We have yet to actually scan our own home planet, but the scan was successful. Our orbit is actually big enough. That was one of the issues I ran into early on in this mission planning, was I was at a 100-kilometer orbit, and I don't think that was large enough to run an orbital scan. And that was kind of the whole point half of the point of this orbital station, right, was to run an orbital scan of the planet and get KerbNet access, and then, you know, scan the planet for the coordinates of these secret science facilities that we need to go and take our ELU samples to. So we've done that. We've run our initial scan. Of course, there's no Kerbals on this station yet to start the science and start the analysis and start looking for coordinates to the super secret science facilities. But that will come in due time. Right now, what's happening is what is happening on the screen, which is this. No, I think what, you know, Jebediah has gotten into an efficiency kick lately. We launched these things, and there's that visual glitch again. I zoomed in and I came out, and it re-rendered the part. So that's something that could work. Aurora Borealis, that was so pretty on the poles. He's gotten into an efficiency kick, and come hell or high water, he was going to recover as much of this vessel as possible. So that upper stage, we're totally fine to lose. We already recovered one of those kind of exoskeleton stages on the previous launch, but the electronics, the computer, the probe, the information, that's probably what's going on here. Yeah, the information we just ran to scan the planet was loaded back into this probe core on this little controller top piece of the launch we just did. And to get the highest fidelity of data, it needed to return to the surface and be recovered. So we kind of aimed relatively close to the Kerbal Space Center, deorbited it, put a couple parachutes on this little computer probe controller, and had the full intention of recovering it. And that's exactly what we're doing. Really quick, really easy mission. It has some few interesting things. It's fun. Something interesting is to, turn over to the north and try and align a slightly inclined polar orbit, rendezvous, and then return the data on the orbital scan back to the surface so that we can recover it. I think what would be fun is if I built like a little aircraft carrier and had it go out and actually recover these things. That'd be a fun little immersive, realistic thing. But we are moving on to the more fun, interesting launch, and this is our shuttle launch. So in the challenge, we gave ourselves to give different types of launches for this multi-launch station build. We did a conventional rocket, 2 conventional rockets. We did an SSTO, a space plane, a single stage to orbit space plane. And now we're going to do a NASA-style shuttle orbiter. So that means we are going to build a shuttle with a cargo bay that has our payload. We are going to attach that shuttle to a giant, dumb, useless fuel tank with a couple of solid rocket motors on either side, and we're going to launch that baby into orbit and then glide the orbiter itself back to the Kerbal Space Station. Or so that is the intention. We'll see if we are remotely successful with that, or if, you know, we don't do that. I think the toughest thing is to something that I'm not good at, something that I'm trying to get better at, but definitely struggle with, is timing up my return to the Kerbal Space Center with an unpowered shuttle. You know, I wanted to kind of be true to form, as close as true to form. I don't want to get into the semantics of exactly how the flight plan of the space shuttle went. It was just like, generally what I remember about space shuttle flight, which was that it wasn't powered on return. It was, you know, very specifically planned to re-enter the atmosphere and fly back to Andrews Air Force Base. And so that was the intention, right? It was like we were going to go up and expend all of our ascent fuel using those vector engines, expend all of our in-orbit fuel, you know, which has different kind of efficiencies and uses, and different type of engines were needed. So that, you know, that was kind of the headcanon. The narrative here was we needed a different type of engine to be used in the vacuum of space, which is what those little side thruster engines were. I think the actual space shuttle used whatever this game's version of monopropellant is. I tried that. It was excruciatingly slow, like super low thrust to weight. So instead we just used one of those little two of those little thumper liquid fuel engines, and we had to point them, we had to angle them to where they pointed, because, you know, I also wanted to have visually make it look like the space shuttle. So we had to put them on top underneath the tail fin and point them through the center of gravity. Make sure that center of thrust was pointed through the center of gravity. And now all we're doing is adding some RCS thrusters, because this thing does not have, I think that the command module, you know, the cockpit has some reaction wheel authority, but you know, in the vacuum of space we'll need some little control authority monopropellant thrusters, and so we kind of slap those all around the edges of the orbiter. And now we're done. We're done with the orbiter. I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks very space shuttle-esque. The 3 vector engines there at the back definitely help, and then kind of that engine shroud definitely looks very space shuttle-y. And then we have this big old fuel canister. Something important, if you want to be kind of true to the realistic shuttle, is that fuel, the actual fuel thing itself does not have an engine on it. So if you're building your own shuttle, and you want to get brownie points, you got to put solid rocket motors on. You can put solid rocket motors on the side of the NASA style shuttle, but you can't put an engine at the bottom of that fuel tank. It just needs to be a big dumb fuel tank. And something I struggled with was, and so then you got to remember that if you're going to do that, then your thrust still needs to be pointing through your center of gravity. Otherwise, you're going to induce some rotations around the center of gravity, and it will be nearly impossible to launch yourself, especially after you use the thrust from the solid rocket motors. So yeah, you angle those vector engines. I had a hard time with like the radial symmetry, getting those vector engines to angle. But eventually we did. We kind of eyeballed it through the center of gravity. And then we picked our crew. Obviously we are taking, I mean, this is a tough mission. Shuttle launches are not easy. So celebrity pilot Valentina Kerman has agreed to be the pilot in command for this flight. And in Kerbal Space Program tradition, we bring an intern who was in charge of picking the flight plan and put us on the exact opposite side of the Earth. So Valentina quickly, adjusted our starting flight plan to where the orbital line of our space station was going directly overhead and in the correct direction. We wanted to fly to the north and not to the south. And so, that was a quick little correction. But, they're learning, and it's okay to make mistakes as interns. And then we have Engineer Lodner and Scientists Philby, Kerman, all ready to go. This will be our first injection of crew up to the Polar Goose Space Station. It is a momentous day because that means we're about to get started. So without further ado, Valentina is going to start her pre-flight brief.
Okay, everyone, I'll be your pilot in command for this voyage to the Polar Goose Super Secret Science Discovery Orbital Space Station, or the PG-STAS. We are joined today by flight training intern Nenie Kerman. Say hi, Nenie. Hi, everyone. Is everyone ready? Ready. Ready. Wait, Valentina, did we remember to pack the... Okay, that completes our pre-flight checklist. We are off.
And off they are. They've got positive thrust, though it is quite low to begin with. And you're going to help yourself out with a shuttle launch if you go ahead and orient the bottom part of your shuttle to go in the direction of your orbit line. So we have the bottom part of our shuttle facing north. And if you're going east, have it face east, blah, blah, blah. You can just do that in the vehicle assembly building. But anyway, we have positive rate, and we are going... remember that there's kind of like a horizontal vector to our velocity. Anyway, Valentina gives the command to Nenie.
Go ahead and start roll program. Roll program initiated. Good job, Nenie.
And yeah, the roll program was successful. No issues there. That's important because, as I was just explaining, you have this horizontal vector kind of working against you, not helping you push you up through the atmosphere. It's just pushing you to the side. So once you initiate that roll program, well, now that horizontal vector is flipped, 90 degrees, and it is a vertical vector. And you are kind of helping yourself out. You're pushing yourself up vertically through the belly of your orbiter, and then also forward through your kind of directional vector. It looks like we're not going through our prograde vector, but remember the thrust is pointing slightly below our directional line. So we are actually, in fact, our thrust is actually going through our prograde vector. And it was, you see how wobbly it is. It was actually kind of hard to control, but eventually once we got up and out of the atmosphere, we figured it out. We figured out this was not the, there were a couple of simulation launches that did not work until Valentina and Nenie ran the correct calculations and simulations, and eventually was able to get to orbit. We still have a ton of fuel left in this big orange dumb fuel tank, so even though we've pushed our apoaps up to 200 or so, 204 kilometers, which is the target orbit, I went ahead and on our circularization burn started it a little early and just used up as much fuel as I could to where it would just, push our periaps just below the Kármán line, so that, we kind of get as much fuel out of this fuel tank as we can. But Valentina giving the command to
go ahead and detach fuel tank.
She's very serious. Nenie.
Fuel tank detached. Separation program initiated. Separation successful.
Lodner kind of pipes in.
Hey, how long is this going to take? Because, we got a lot of work to do.
And Valentina, ignores him.
Go ahead and shut down vector engines and initiate vacuum space thrusters.
I don't remember what those things are called, but we do. We shut down the vector engines. We initiate the side little boosters, the thumpers. I think they're called thumpers. Lodner turns to Philby.
You're being kind of quiet, a little nervous.
Philby nods her head and just says,
"Yeah, it's just
Oh, wait. No. He was nerdy, right? She was nerdy? I can't remember. This was the voice. Yes.
Yeah, it's just my first time in space, and I want to do a good job, and I want to get I really want to know why Duna is red."
So yeah, everybody is very motivated. Everybody is on mission, very motivated, and Valentina and Nenie are hard at work getting the rendezvous plan. So same sort of deal here. Our apoaps is a little bit high, so when we get up to apoaps, we're going to push our periaps to be the intersecting node with kind of the intersection point with the target orbital line. And then once we get down to periaps, this is what you see me doing here with the maneuver node, then we'll push our apoaps up or down and pull that close approach into, you know, less than a kilometer or so. And it took a couple of orbits, but eventually we got to our close approach. And then, you know, all you got to do for once you have your close approach and once you're kind of getting there, you just slow down. Oh, wait, we're not even there yet. What I was looking at the maneuver nodes thinking, no. We have set up our close approach after a few orbits, and now we have to just wait until we get there. So this is a perfect time to check out the, Valentina says,
I'm going to go out there and do a visual inspection of the payload. Actually, as a matter of fact, no. Nenie, you do it. Wait, me? Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea if you go out there and you do a visual inspection of the payload and a visual inspection of the orbiter and make sure everything is safe and good to go. Don't use that door. That door is blocked by a massive battery and solar panel array. Oh, yeah, you're right. That's silly me. I definitely wasn't just reading the book that says landings for dummies in case we do something irreversibly dumb like miss the Kerbal Space Center. But that's not. Anyway, I'm outside and performing my visual inspection now.
And she does. Nenie goes around, does a visual inspection of the payload. Payload looks great. It is secured in place. It does not look like it's been dislodged during flight. And, you know, solar panels look like they're receiving solar energy as they should. Vector engines don't look to be damaged or overheated. The bottom side protective reentry panels look to be all nice and safe. Nothing missing. No massive holes in the leading edge of the wing or anything like that. That's not a joke. That's just, I want to be respectful of but that's what happened to Columbia. Yeah, there's some sort of impact to the leading edge, and it caused it to overheat, and then a rapid, you know, fire spread through the rest of the orbiter. But anyway, Nenie back in her seat, checking in with the rest of the crew. Everything looks good to go. Valentina.
Excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, that's really good. Way to go, Nenie. I wish I could go out and go on EVA sometime. That would be really cool if I could do that.
And the rest of the crew is just silent.
It's all right, Philby. You'll get your time. You will definitely get your time to go on EVA. It's just not now, it seems.
Lodner kind of trying to comfort Philby. Obviously, Philby is nervous and just wanting to contribute, right? New to the program. Lodner kind of looks over and says,
"You're doing great, kid."
I don't know why Lodner has become our Harrison Ford character, but you know what? It's sticking now. Lodner is now canonically Harrison Ford. Harrison Kerman. Harrison Kerman. Anyway, we have rendezvous. We have our close approach. And Valentina and Nenie are just bringing us into close approach. So yeah, we intersected our orbit lines. We waited a few orbits and pushed our apoaps up until you know, those separation nodes came together, and then you can use a maneuver node to kind of fine tune it, and then you just wait for it to happen. And then as you get closer, you slow down relative to, you know, switch it over to, click the little text box and switch it over to target, and you know, slow down relative to your target, and then kind of just wiggle your way over there, burning towards your target, burning away from your target, trying to align your prograde and retrograde markers with the target indicators. And then we just detached our payload, and RCS'd it over to the space station. That actually took forever. I need to get better at that. I think it's just because the payload was kind of awkward and its center of gravity was in a weird spot relative to where the thrust of the RCS vectors are. But, and then, you know, the docking port wasn't on like a nose, you know, at the front or back of the payload. So it just took forever. It took forever to float that thing. I know on the screen there it took, 8 seconds, but that's because I sped it up like 15 times because it just took absolutely forever. But enough complaining. This is for the first time ever, we have our fully completed space station. This is the Polar Goose in all its glory. Look at it. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's everything we ever wanted. I actually think it looks great. I think it looks really, really cool. And it is ready to receive crew. It is ready to analyze the surface of Kerbin, to analyze the ELU ice samples. And it is, look at that. There we go. Now we have it in the light. It is ready to receive crew and begin the actual mission. The actual mission being take these ELU ice samples to the secret facilities on Kerbin. And that's exactly what we're going to do. But before we can do that, we need to send some crew over and tour the space, namely our scientist, Philby Kerman. So Valentina says, hey, or no, Lodner kind of like elbows Philby and says,
hey kid, you're up. Wait, really? Okay. Here I go. All right. Should I go out the right or the left door? It literally does not matter. Okay, I'm going out the right door. Wow. Space. It's beautiful. Yeah, just go ahead and just focus, Philby.
And Philby does. Philby, makes her way, Philby makes his way all the way over to the station and enters the station.
Okay, I'm inside the station. Excellent.
Valentina says,
now, just make your way to the science lab. Right, the science lab. I've opened the first door, and I've closed the first door. You do not have to narrate everything you're doing. I know, I'm just so excited. So, now do I go... yes, just continue going forward. If you continue up through the station, you should find the science lab, no problem. Right, okay, I'm continuing up through the station, and then I go left or right. Well, I can only actually go straight. So wait. Philby, is something wrong? No, I'm just a little lost. How can you be lost, Philby? It's literally a tube. It's a single tube that if you just go straight through, you'll eventually make your way to the science lab. Yep. No. Definitely see that. Definitely see the straight tube. I'm in the straight tube, but now I've turned around. I actually don't know if I'm going towards the... Okay. I've made my way to an intersection. Yes, the intersection is the connecting node. All you have to do is just go forward. Okay, yes, I've turned left, and I'm in one of the habitation modules. Philby, that's great, but we need you to go to the science lab. Can you make your way to the science lab, or do you need somebody to come over and help you find it? No, yep, oh, here it is. Yep, I have found the science lab. I am picking up a beaker now. I have a feeling he's not in the science lab. Philby, can you describe what you're seeing? I see a cup. It has chemicals in it. You're not in the science lab, are you? It is much harder to see from the outside than it is from the inside. So
Lodner just unbuckles his seatbelt and says,
I'll take care of it. I'll go over there and I'll help him out.
And so Lodner does. Lodner pops out and makes his way over to the facility. And this time he makes a visual inspection of the station and goes to a closer node. So he goes into the science facility.
All right. I've made made it into the science bay. We've got centrifuge on the right and the left, and I believe if I just go down relative from the top of the science node, we will find the main common area and main science lab.
Valentina.
Yes, that is correct.
Nenie's just odd observing this whole time.
Yes, I've made it into the science bay, out of the science bay and into the common area.
And at this point, he would make it into the common area, but the incompatibility with these connecting nodes on the stock-alike parts and free IVA, and just kind of smushing them up against that science bay. You can see like there's that docking node that he would go through, because that's the door that he went through. So narratively, yes, Lodner easily made his way into this is the common area. I know it's like the big science bay, but I like to think this is the common area. This is where a lot of day-to-day activities would happen. And he heads up into the command module, and he starts doing the initial checks. Before I found the stock-alike parts mod, I just built this kind of interesting forward section. But ideally, you would be able to go from that common area all the way into the cupola module and back. So that's what Lodner's doing. Lodner's kind of doing the initial checks, starting all the systems up, checking the computers, setting the passwords, resetting the passwords, and touring the facility to make sure everything is in tip-top shape.
I am now in the docking arm, checking to make sure our docking nodes for the exploration vehicles are up to code. It looks like they are. Everything looks to be in tip-top shape. So that's good. We'll make our way back to the common area. I have actually not seen Philby yet, so if anybody could give me a status on where Philby is, I think I'm going to eat my words here. It is actually kind of, you know what? It is a little confusing. It is a tad bit confusing. I'm not sure which habitation node he's in.
So Lodner, gets on the intercom and eventually finds Philby. And while that's happening, Valentina and Nenie start their return to surface checklist, which we have learned includes: have the snacks been eaten? Has the cargo bay been closed? Do our control surfaces work? And are you ready? And they are. Check. And while Lodner searches for Philby on the expansive, confusing space station, Valentina and Nenie plot a course to return to the Kerbal Space Center. So, they checking here, Valentina checking to see if, we have enough fuel to align ourselves with the Kerbal Space Center, and we do not. We are going to miss it completely. Valentina allowing Nenie to run the calculations, Nenie forgetting that while you're in orbit, the planet is still turning under you, and so they basically turn the wrong way. And as we start our reentry flight, Valentina very quickly doesn't want to concern Nenie, but just very calmly and very very calmly and with apt professionalism turns to Nenie and says,
Nenie, we're going to make an emergency landing. We are not going to make it to the Kerbal Space Center, so prepare yourself for the learning experience of a lifetime.
Why is it with all of my launches, the intern learns a whole lot? Nenie looks nervous, holds on, white knuckle, holds on to her seat as she turns to Valentina.
Is this supposed to happen? Is this what's supposed to happen?
And Valentina does not respond because she is in the throes of concentration as she tries to right the orbiter. and slow it down as safely and as quickly as possible. Because they are over land and they are over a flat section of land, and this would be a great place to land without, running into mountains or trees or rocks or any other types of obstacles. And so Valentina expertly and tactically tumbles their way through the atmosphere, gives the command to release the drogue chutes. Nenie presses the drogue chute button. We have...
Nenie, great job. We do have positive confirmation on the drogue chutes. What we're going to do is we're going to wait for those drogue chutes to catch us and slow us down and reorient our nose into our prograde vector. So it's just a waiting game at this point. We are in complete and total control of the vessel.
I don't even think Valentina believed that at that point, but she did. She got complete and total control of the vessel just as she said that. Yeah, that's kind of why I put those drogue chutes there. I anticipated that I was not going to be able to glide this thing to the Kerbal Space Center, and so I knew that and also that this thing was very, very flip heavy once it did not have a payload, so or flip prone once it didn't have a payload. So those drogue chutes, that's pro move. You can put those drogue chutes there, and once they deploy, it'll kind of put a lot more force at the back of the plane and allow you to kind of fall nose down. So once we got our nose into our prograde vector, I knew that we could probably go for a little glide down. Valentina turns to Nenie.
Okay, Nenie. Great job on the drogue chutes. My controls.
Nenie says,
"Your controls, Valentina."
And Valentina spirals ourselves down to keep our airspeed up. We needed to keep our airspeed up while also looking for a flat place to land. And after trying this a couple times, we flew kind of like too far into some bumpy tree-like terrain. So spiraling down was actually the easiest way to keep our airspeed up while staying relatively close to the flat area of terrain. And all we lost was an RCS thruster pack with that very aggressive slam into the ground. But hey, any landing you walk away from is a good landing. And while that is going on, meanwhile, at the Kerbal Space Center, exciting developments as Jebediah and Bill test fly the new exploratory science vessel, super secret exploratory science vessel, the S.E.E.V.E. The S.E.E.V.E. Jebediah and Bill hop into the first inaugural flight of the maiden voyage of the S.E.E.V.E. There's going to be 4 of these with 4 hand-picked teams, 1 pilot and 1 scientist. So this is a perfect representation of the S.E.E.V.E. missions. 1 pilot and 1 scientist will fly these science exploratory vessels to the discovered coordinates of the super secret science facilities and take those science samples from ELU to those facilities so that more science could be done to them. And it looks like they can achieve stable flight with their payload, so those tests were successful. And Jebediah, he loves a good test flight. He loves a good test flight. All right, well, while that's all happening and while Valentina and Nenie await recovery in the Polar Goose Orbiter 2, we are going to build our 4th and final launch. Wait. 5th and final launch. I said there were 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be the 5th launch. I said 4. I lied. There's 5 launches. The 5th launch isn't really a Polar Goose building launch. It is the start of the next mission. And that mission is to bring 4 teams up to the Polar Goose super secret space discovery science space orbital station. I forget, PG Assistas, whatever Valentina called it. We're going to bring 4 teams up to that station, and we're going to dock those exploratory science space plane vessels to the Polar Goose station. And from there, our 4 teams will be briefed, 1 pilot, 1 scientist. will be briefed on their coordinates and their mission. They will be given a specific ELU science sample that they then must take and find the aforementioned coordinates of the super secret science facilities, and then take these ELU ice samples to those facilities for more science to be done. And this is going to be a competition. This is going to be an amazing race style competition where all 4 teams will set off at once. We'll do 4 simultaneous flights. We'll have to do them one at a time, but in your head, imagine they're going to be 4 simultaneous flights. We'll start kind of a timer of some sort, and the coordinates will be like the clues, and the team that is most efficient, fastest to get their sample to the ground, landed safely, and handed over to the secret science facilities wins or whatever. So most efficient team wins. Maybe we'll hand out points, and then those points will determine who gets to do what on the next missions or whatever. I don't know what the points will be for. I haven't thought that far, but what I have thought of is doing this amazing race style mission. So that's what you saw just there in the crew tab. We are picking out our teams. We already have one team up there, right? We have Lodner and Philby, and they've gotten along just fine. So we need 3 more teams. And this mission piloted by our other celebrity pilot, Jebediah Kerman. Now, he does not have, due to the crew capacity limits, he does not have an intern with him. He is the pilot in command, and he is solo on this one. So he does his pre-mission brief, much like Valentina's. He checks in to make sure everybody is ready, and before they can answer, he launches. No, obviously Jebediah is very respectful and made sure everybody was ready before the launch. But we are off on our final launch. This is another big dumb rocket conventional launch, but the payload was super important, so I kind of ran out of ideas. I guess I could have done like a single stage to orbit rocket instead of space plane on this or something like that, but I ran out of ideas. I kind of accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. I did a conventional rocket, I did a space plane, and I did a shuttle. Now all we need to do, I was kind of, exasperated at this point. I just wanted to get the landing, the escape pod space planes up to the space station and be done with it so we could move on to the fun part of the mission. So Jebediah is taking a full crew of scientists and pilots up to the Polar Goose so that they can prepare for this very important mission where we can do science on those ELU ice samples, right? This is the crew. This is the amazing race. They are doing what, I don't know, getting ready or they haven't gotten their briefing yet. They're just full of excited, nervous energy, waiting for, I don't know, this rocket to circularize and rendezvous with the Polar Goose. And while rendezvous and circularization and navigation nodes and maneuver nodes are happening, we're going to check in with our crew. As we said, Jebediah Kerman is the pilot in command, and he is simply the bus driver on this mission. We have our actual amazing race contestants, our actual scientists and teams in the crew and command module with him. In that command module, he's got the scientist Lizbro Kerman, Natalie Kerman, and then in the hitchhiker storage container just below the command module, he has the pilots who will be piloting the return vessels, the science vessels, the super secret special whatever vessels that are going to go down to those secret facilities. We've got Nenie Kerman. We remember Nenie Kerman from the last launch. She learned so much, and She is ready to be her own pilot in command. We have Foen Kerman, who was on the SSTO launch. We have Phobert Kerman, and we have Gracott Kerman. All of these are names that we have seen before. The scientists, they're studying and hanging out. They're very serious. You know, they have a lot more important stuff to be doing, right? But the pilots, pilots are just gonna be pilots. They're hanging out.
No, you
Did you hear
definitely
that
crashed
Valentina
during
had
your
to
test.
emergency
I
land?
did not.
Yeah,
I
I
was
landed
there.
with
I was everybody
style.
quiet. What do you think they're talking about in there? Oh my gosh, it is Jebediah. It looks like he's briefing the scientists on something. Yeah, Phobert, we're probably at Rendezvous. You should go ahead and head out to your plane. You think so? Oh yeah, that's a great idea. I'm gonna go ahead and head out. Guys, there's nothing out here. Why am I even out here? Wow. Classic. Oh, shut up, guys. Hush. I'm trying to listen. All right. What are they saying? All right. If everybody could go ahead and take their seats, I do have the fasten seatbelt sign on. We are making our final close approach to Rendezvous. If you could prepare yourselves to disembark and head to your exploration vessels. Thank you.
Oh boy, those Kerbals love just playing pranks on each other. That's just what they do. It's funny to think about. I mean, the years they spend slingshotting through the solar system, you gotta imagine they get up to all sorts of hijinks when they're in such close proximity together. So you can only, that was just a few hours. You can only imagine. But anyway, we are at Rendezvous. Gracott is like, all right, now you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and head out and join up with Siggy, my best boy Siggy, or best girl, and we're gonna rock this thing. So it's been real, you guys, but I'm about to win the absolute crap out of this competition. And so Gracott's feeling quite confident. He is feeling quite confident. That's the first team. I believe it's going to be Siggy, Kerman, the scientist, and Gracott, the pilot. There's that weird visual glitch. I really got to figure out what's causing that. But yeah, so we are going to board all of our vessels. Gracott's in the pilot seat. Siggy is in the co-pilot seat just behind that, and start moving all of these exploratory science vessels over to the Polar Goose, because we have our teams here on this transfer unit, this transfer launch, but we need to get all the teams over to the Polar Goose station so that they can not only start analyzing their samples that they have from E.L.U., but also start scanning the planet, scanning Kerbin, start scanning Kerbin for those super secret science facilities. And boy, did it take me forever to get these little space planes over to the science station. Oh gosh, it took an absolute nightmare of a time. And I realized I should have put some nose docking ports on these things. I put the docking port in the middle of the plane. So there's you can see how the docking ports are spaced. There is absolutely no room to put the other planes on there. So I was kind of looking at it thinking oh shoot, what have I done? So I docked one. You guys saw me move it over, and no need to waste our time watching the other one. So I docked two back to back like pancakes, and then I just decided, what, this is way too much effort. I think I was checking to make sure I didn't knock off a solar panel there or something on that last little dock. This is way too much effort. We're just gonna send the whole launch vehicle over to, we have a couple of those docking ports just flat on. We're gonna send the whole launch vehicle over to the Polar Goose orbital station and just dock that way. And then when we launch all the planes off of this vessel, and when all the science has been done and the locations have been found out, we'll just, launch them from there. So this just becomes one big station. And, Jebediah Kerman, and I think, just Jebediah Kerman. He's just going to hang out until, so he basically extends his stay for a couple. The idea was Jebediah Kerman was just going to drive the bus up there and then deorbit himself. But, you know what? He is just gonna. He likes hanging out. He's one of the guys. He's one of the Kerbals. He's gonna hang out with the pilots. This gives a little bit more living space too. Not that this station needed any more living space, but will solidify. You know, everybody's gonna go and hang out for a while. Science needs to be done, and while the scientists are doing their science thing, the pilots are gonna try and stay out of trouble and hang out in all the different common areas. They have their duties, you know. They gotta clean things and monitor the internet or whatever. I don't know. They're gonna do their thing. But you know, pilots are gonna do their thing. Scientists are fast at work, starting to get to work, going around the station. I think in my idea that central column there is the common area, and then you have your kind of habitat spaces, and then you've got your kind of science going on where those centrifuges are. But we have our station. It is complete. We have all of our teams, which we'll solidify and finalize on the next episode. But we have all of our amazing race teams, and we are ready to do this thing. So what's left to do? Jebediah is out there. He is taking a moment to himself, taking it all in.
Well, that was, thank you all for being such great guests and such great. Thank you all for being such great guests and such great compatriots on this flight. The last things we need to do is we need to find the location of these science facilities, do the science on our samples, and then take our samples down to those facilities. Good luck and Kerbal speed to all of you.
Thanks all for watching. We're gonna do the mission and do the amazing race next time. Bye.